If it works, it works. Like, we don't want to disturb it.
इसने लिखा है ये कोड why is it real?
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 13 of Intuit India NextGen Talks. Today we are all gathered here to talk about certain assumptions and misconceptions that people generally have about software engineers. Like our entire lives could be wrapped up and put into a box. So we are here to debunk and discuss some of those myths and find out if there's any truth to it. I'm Swastika, a software engineer too here at Intuit, and today I have a great panel with me, people across experience levels. So, why don't we start?
Yeah, hi. I am Maida and I am a software engineer one at Intuit.
I am Chetanya Sharma and I am staff software engineer at Intuit. I'm Auro. I'm a senior software engineer here. I've been here for 5 years.
This is what people think we are. This is what people think we do. Let's unpack it together. Cutting edge projects versus maintenance work. Do engineers really have opportunities to innovate, or are they stuck managing legacy systems?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. So I think getting the opportunity to work on a legacy system is a really good one because you actually learn how the system works in production at scale and you figure out the intricacies of how to build systems like that in the future. So one of the projects that Chetanya and I have worked on in the last year, it started out as a huge legacy system, a monolithical system, and we had to reinvent it from scratch, like invent a new architecture because it had to fit with the modern vision of the product. And this was such an enriching experience. I think we learned a huge amount in going through the whole process. Have any thoughts?
Actually, plus one to that, plus when we actually work on the legacy projects, right? So there's always an opportunity to go innovate and see what fits in well. So as even in my past experience, what I have seen is like there are a couple of legacy projects I've worked upon, and that always gave me an opportunity to do something better, to improve them, and the cutting edge technologies also fits in well.
Yeah, I feel like I've sort of changed my perspective about it. Initially, I used to think like if you give me something, a project that dates back to a decade now, I'm not interested in it. I would not like it or something. But then recently, I've been working on something that is that dates back to I don't know a few years from now. It's really old, and I feel like it sort of is like mining for gold. You eventually stumble upon something, and you're like, yeah, this is it. This is what I wanted. So I think legacy systems do have this. Aura about them that you will somehow stumble upon something that you needed and you could not get it from the most recent projects that are there in your org or something. And yeah, the analogy that I can come up with is it's just gold mining and you will figure out and come up with something.
Yeah. It was actually a really fun experience. I think we used to discover these ancient comments, right? From developers back in the 1990s. Yeah, and we used to like share it out with.
Yeah, and this also gives us one perspective, right? The guys who wrote this code 30 years back still running. So this is actually kind of an inspiration for us that what we write, is it scalable enough? Right? Is it like could 30 years later on someone can say, okay, Chaitanya's code and working. So this actually like I am totally fine with it, right?
What were one of those fun comments that
I think this is one bad habit that some of us do have. Like we spam to-dos all over the code and then just forget about them.
It's a mix of both the worlds. Sometimes I feel like the code, I'm like, kisne likha hai ye code? You know, with all this awe and this feeling of being captivated by that who wrote this question. I'm like, kisne likha hai ye code? Why is it in this?
If it works, it works. We don't want to disturb it.
But I think, so as when I started out, I had a very good mix of legacy and innovative projects, and somehow it's always been that I'm working on I'm simultaneously I have tasks that explore the more innovative like generative AI, all of those technologies, and there's also some legacy tasks that I have, and for me, I've realized that while I get to get creative, my actual skill gets developed when I'm working on legacy projects because that is where you realize, I mean, there's I personally feel like when I started my internship here at Intuit itself, I I didn't know Java, I did not know Spring Boot. I was befuddled by those annotations, what they meant, what they are, and I tried to do a course, I just could not wrap my head around it. For me, the best learning experience was to go through it, was to debug through it, was to understand it. And I think that is where working on legacy projects is very beneficial.
Exactly. Yeah.
It gives you the perspective and it tells you what you want to do and what you do not want to do also.
My advice would be to explore into these large code bases, like figure out how all the pieces work together, and you're going to develop that big picture systems thinking from this. If you're designing something from scratch and you've never had the opportunity to explore it, what already is, you're not going to get the same kind of learning.
It's very overwhelming, but I think at the same time, it's very rewarding. Like, there have been times I have delayed exploring it. Like, who will go through this? This is of no value to me. Will I even use it? But then sometimes I've had to go through it, and it's been a very exciting and enlightening journey to say the least. Yeah, be nice.
Oh, nice. All engineers are nerdy.
Nerdy about what?
Yeah, we have to define what nerd means.
The career we want further explanations to it speaks
Oh
volume.
yeah, too.
I think it's boring, right? Nerdy like, over here, it's look like when we say the engineers are nerd, it's like he's a bore Asian is always looking into the laptop, working in the like that.
I feel like the people who are running the world well today, they're all nerds.
And they're all engineers, yeah.
Engineers, but it's in nerds are there in every profession. Like,
I think my framing with this would be that we're more than just nerds. I think just because we're nerds doesn't mean we're not creative or we don't have other interests or we're not invested in culture. So this is something we all do very actively explore. We set our boundaries with nerdy stuff.
yeah, and I feel like the definition of what nerdiness is very limited.
Yeah.
Like, I know nerds who are even, working in very exciting, like traditionally exciting roles like fashion or design or even gaming for that matter. Gaming is kind of software engineering. But I know nerds across all places. And I know that we can't stay in an ivory tower if we want to get anywhere or build good projects or really achieve anything of any semblance. We need to step out of it. But there is this excitement, this curiosity, which is associated always with nerdiness, is essential to any.
I think you're a person who always looks for a food for his brain, that is called nerd.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Be it in software engineering, be it in any other industry, like we need this is my tech is my
Right.
food for my brain,
and
right?
these are crucial elements for the tech jobs, right? Like the curiosity and the drive to do problem solving.
Right.
This is what makes us good at our job. So it's
Exactly.
like a good thing, not a bad thing.
Also, for me, it's like there's this Nietzsche's perspectivism coming into picture for me for this nerdy thing. I mean, it's your perspective on what you think nerdy is. Like Swastika mentioned, I know the best people that I know are nerds, and those are like the best people, and they strike up one very beautiful balance between work and life. And I also feel like if you see internet is flooded with memes on engineers, and if you stereotype you assume that engineers are nerds usually, then we wouldn't have this meme festival going on around engineers are all fun, not just nerdy. So yeah, the typical Bangalore techie is a coffee fueled weekday warrior and Friday night brewery regular, a gadget geek who juggles coding marathons, debates whether to read or run at Cubbon Park, and wages a daily war with the city's legendary traffic jams.
I agree.
Last line,
I agree.
I get the traffic. The
last
traffic
line
part
would
is
be
quite-
definitely true.
Yeah.
Traffic part.
Many nightmares with the traffic.
I just met traffic today itself.
Yeah, one time it took me like 45 minutes to get from the gate here to the gate outside.
It's easier to just walk.
Yeah.
Like, there
pretty
have been
much.
times where people have been stuck in jam and I just walked home and I'm hoped through.
And maybe you guys might be a part of those meetings when a couple of guys are attending the calls from the traffic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I have attended.
We are
calls
also
in
those
traffic.
guys sometimes.
Yeah.
But they are at the traffic, they are attending the calls, right?
Yeah, definitely. So what about the rest of the stereotypes?
Yeah,
Like,
that-
Cubbon
that's-
Park is great.
Yeah. That's what
I love
was
reading.
thinking you guys missed on the other part.
Yeah.
Gadget geek who juggles coding marathons, debates whether to read or run at Cubbon Park.
Okay, one tiny part of this. I think when it comes to coding marathons, we do end up spending more time planning on what to code rather than actually coding.
Yeah.
So that's one stereotype I think has commonly been held.
Yeah, you just don't pick up your laptop.
But
and
isn't
start
that
Yeah.
important, I think? Planning is important.
Yeah,
right?
planning is really important. I think if you just blindly start coding random stuff, it's not going to work probably.
Yep.
You really need to have a good idea in mind before you put your fingers on the keyboard.
That is true.
Yeah,
Missed the Cubbon Park part.
I love Cubbon Park. I'm not ashamed.
I'm a Lal Bagh person.
I'm a Cubbon Park person.
I'm an apartment park person.
What else? Did we miss something?
The
Gadget
coffee
geek.
and brewery.
Coffee fueled weekday warrior.
Kind of true, I guess.
Very true.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since I started drinking coffee, which was this year, my life has improved.
I tried to fit into the stereotype. I tried my best to sip on the coffee and like be the school engineer, but I just couldn't take coffee for some reason.
I'm an old fashioned guy, tea guy.
Same, yeah.
I'm this person who wakes up with coffee, has tea in the evening and ends her day with green tea. So I'm
Wow.
across the spectrum.
I think these days the trend is green tea and matcha tea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matcha tea.
Yeah.
That I saw this one stereotype, right? All these tech bros, they've become suddenly very like health conscious.
Oh, yes.
So they go to all these smoothie bars and get like matcha tea. So have any of you ever done that?
She knows I don't even drink water.
Yeah, she doesn't drink water. I have to get, when I'm getting water for myself, I have to get water for her.
Oh my god, yeah. I have my new teammate keeps reminding me to get hydrated.
She
because
keeps
I
on
forget.
reminding me. Every
Yeah.
time I see her, I'm reminded to drink water. She comes up
Yeah.
with 2 glasses of water. I'm like, yeah, what is it about? She places one on my desk. She's like, have water.
It's becoming like
Is that a
Pavlovian at this
stereotype?
point.
Is that a stereotype?
It applies for me. Like right now, it's becoming like Pavlovian. So when I see her, I remind myself to drink water too.
Dehydrated coders. Maybe that's what we should call this episode. Dehydrated and running on beer.
So I'm part of, like, sometimes I attend this rationalist meetup called, there's a group called Less Wrong. It's a community online. And it's basically a way of examining our own biases. So looking at what we do in our daily lives and seeing what parts of it could stem from various kinds of biases and then reasoning our way through resolving these biases, right? So that's where it starts. And the kind of people it attracts are, I think, stereotypically nerds, like people who are interested in various academic pursuits. So the people I've met there consist of software developers, PhD students, for example. And the last time I went there, we discussed universal basic income. So we just spent those 2 hours discussing on what universal basic income is and why that's a good idea. And there was a heated debate on both sides. But yeah, I think Bangalore is a great place to be in. One reason being this kind of active community here. Like, I think a set of people who do like intellectualism, thinking about stuff.
Absolutely.
And software does contribute to this in a huge way.
Exactly. And I feel like, so to what you said, right, there is this perception that engineers or people working corporate jobs, they're sitting in an ivory tower. They're completely ignorant of what is going on around them. What are the issues? What are the social challenges that we need to face? I completely disagree with that. I feel like the kind of discussions that I often have with my engineer friends, it's very enlightening. And to understand that a lot of like engineering is a very important profession, so to speak, in our country. It's also one of the higher paying jobs here. So the surplus that we generate can actually be used to empower communities, and so many people are already doing that. Like within Bangalore, I know activist circles, I know social organizations that have been funded by software engineers and people who actively do that, like our own We Care and Give Back programs. And so many, like in the Bangalore tech scene, I feel like there is a sense of responsibility that is definitely there, and I've observed it across most of my colleagues and friends and everyone. And I feel like the skills that we also have, right? Like, for example, recently one of my friends reached out to me about this one school in Meghalaya. They wanted some funding for their school, and for that they needed a website to establish credibility. And that is the kind of skill which they lack. But that is where we come into the picture. So like we, over the weekends, and I've known so many people who already do this. Over the weekends, they're building websites for these people. They're trying to figure out how technical interventions can, empower them more. So yeah, I completely agree to that.
That's
Like,
quite sweet.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do really like how people care about nature here. Like, so we've organized sustainability events in Intuit in the past. I think lake cleanups and plantation drives. And the response from people has been amazing. Like, people who are really passionate about this. They spend the whole day in these activities, get really tired at the end of it. But it is kind of heartening to see how people have diverse interests in this way. They're not just relegated to their work. They don't spend their entire day absorbed in what they're doing. They actually take out time to do activities like this, which is great.
Absolutely. And Bangalore's cultural scene is beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
All these meetups, all these community events, they're just really...
There's this girl-child program that Intuit does, right? So there is one needy girl child that I referred for this program, and her life has literally changed for good. And that this was one eye-opening change of narrative for me, because you usually think that doctors are the ones who save lives and more generous and kind. and probably software engineers are dead at heart. They don't care about the world. They just have ice in their veins or something like that. But I think the more time I spent here at Intuit, you see all these weekend. I think we have those donation boxes on
Yes.
every floor,
Everywhere.
right? You can donate your toys, your clothes, or something, and that really speaks volumes about how dedicated the software engineers here are to make an impact in someone else's life. And yeah, that was one very big perspective change for me when I came to Bangalore.
One of the biggest drivers for me has been making people happy. So Intuit's mission
By
is
coding.
so there was this one point where we were working on a certain application. We scaled it up from like 1,000 users to 10,000. And one of the favorite parts of working on it was looking at the customer feedback, which kept flowing through. And then we just prioritize that feature and work
Right.
on it over the next week. And we'd send back an email saying, yeah, this works now, go ahead. And they'd write these thank you notes to us saying, okay, now my life has become much better now. Like you've just unlocked this.
Yeah, you must have
ability
got
for-
the award
yeah.
for a customer obsession. Right?
Yeah, I think we did at that point. But this kind of feedback loop was really amazing because
Nice.
we could actually tangibly feel that we were making people work better, faster, happier. So that is something which drives me even to this day. I think a lot of times when I'm thinking about a new feature or if I'm brainstorming, one of the guiding principles for me is how does the customer ultimately benefit from this when they're using the product?
And then when he wears all the caps, PM, PD.
I think all of us should. I think being a software engineer at a place like Intuit, you're encouraged to wear these kinds of
Exactly.
hats.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
True.
Absolutely. Like one time you're also doing the job of a data analyst. You're trying to
Yeah.
figure out which problem, you're trying to figure out which metric is more indicative of the feature's success or things like that. So I think we need to wear all of those hats at all points.
And that also highlights why communication is very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For-
We can go back to the point of salary and all.
I think we are pampered here with the benefits.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about that.
Like we work in VP, so what I feel is that it is virtual expert platform. So you just help customers across all products. So every work that we do here, not sure if it is every work, but the work that I did, all of the work that I did, had a direct correlation to the customers, how it solved customers' problem, to customers' problems, or if you could resolve the problems or not. So let's say if I'm working on a certain aspect of a problem, I can clearly see the metrics into how many customers has my solution solved it for. So I think being able to see those numbers, those stats, and like during my co-op internship, I worked on a project wherein we could give customers more insights and we could give them a more curated and tailored solution for their problems. The fact that you get to see that and you can very directly get the feedback from the customers, I think that experience is really enriching. And I'm not saying it for the sake of saying it, but whenever there is a work which involves some stats like this, it's really fulfilling to sleep and you've done some great work today, compared to if I just solve a security bug and solve a ticket. It's not as enriching of an experience as much as it is to serve the customers.
But then that kind of establishes the groundwork for the innovative work that you're doing. Like you might realize that this security bug, this tiny little thing, can actually cause a problem, can actually be a pain point for the customer.
I agree.
It does become addictive, no? Like refreshing the dashboards every day to see.
It really is.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff just. I mean, we recently went live with one feature, and this is another stereotype, but I'm just calling it out here that I do not burn the midnight oil all the time. But we recently went live with this one feature, and because we went live during US times, that's when the traffic comes in. And it was so enlightening to just, go through how customers are interacting with it. Like once it's like, you can brainstorm all you want. You can analyze all you want, you can look at all the historical data that you can, but when the feature is put in front of the customers, the way that they interact with it, it's completely new. It surprises you in many different ways, and it's such great learning. So especially at Intuit, I feel like one thing that is encouraged a lot is to experiment. It's to say that you have an idea, and that's basically the cornerstone upon which GED also works, right? That
Exactly.
you have an idea, work on it, take it to prod, and see how the customers react to it. And everywhere, PMs, my manager, everyone, we want to put out a very optimal experience, but on top of that, we are most excited about the learnings. That what is it telling us about the customer? How are they interacting with it? What is their disposition? What kind of customers behave the way that they do? So I think that's one really good thing that I like about working at Intuit. It's not always about, it's about learning. We have a very like long-term vision when we build products or roadmaps. Is that whatever we do, we'll learn and iterate.
I think it's worth explaining what GED is.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best parts of working here. Want to go ahead?
So GD is Global Engineering Days, wherein we get a week, engineers get a whole week to work on any project that they like. So any idea that is in your mind, you're free to work on it. You're not involved in meetings, you're not asked to prioritize it. Just any idea that you have, you work on it, you take it to production, and you see. And so many great things have come out of it, right?
What is incredible is that in our VP thing, we already have one team that originated from a GED idea.
Wow.
We
Yeah.
have a whole team dedicated to a GED.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like the 2 years that I've been here, every year that we worked on GD, it actually ended up, that whole initiative, was prioritized and it was actually taken to prod. So it's been quite a journey, and one that I really enjoy. So the final segment of our today's podcast is, what is that one advice you would give to your younger self, to your not yet engineer self? So we'll go with you first, Maida.
It should be all of you giving me advice. Right?
I can go first.
Yeah.
So I think all my years during school and perhaps some of college, it really reinforced authoritative, hierarchical work and society. And that's something I'd like to tell my younger self to break out of. Like, just be really open. So I think software engineering is a very accepting profession, right? When I walked in as an intern, I'd walk into these design reviews with principal engineers, architects, and they'd be really encouraging for me to offer my own perspectives. Even though I didn't have the same experience as them, I still brought a fresh perspective to the table, and they really appreciated that fact. And I think this is one thing that I'd tell my younger self: just be more courageous, be more open. Don't be afraid of putting out your voice when you join the profession.
If I were to say, I would say stay curious, because whatever comes, whether it's whatever tech it comes, like staying curious and understanding you have a lot of time, right? Maybe I have seen engineers, and even when I was young, at that time we were thinking, okay, we have to complete in a day or two, and we get bogged down because of that. Instead, focus on the real problem and keep our mind calm and say, okay, we will do it. What is the right process? And also that's what I wanted to give myself. Staying curious plus have time. You have time, just take your time.
So one advice that I would give, so my first, when this spark was lit, right, for software engineering, so the story goes back to me reading Dan Brown books. And the main character, who was Robert Langdon, would always have a female sidekick who's very like technically empowered. She's either like a cryptologist or she's very like smart and doing something which females traditionally do not do.
And Robert Langdon got credit for it.
So I was very like, I want to be that person. That is who I want to be. And I always imagined her to be somebody who's like, always totally devoted into her work. There's nothing like I've always had a very artistic bent. I'm into literature. I love reading. I love writing. I write poems. And I always thought that these aspirations or these interests, I'll have to let go of them when I become an engineer, or that my engineering degree or my profession will come at the cost of them. But lately, what I've been realizing and what I have actually discovered this year, in fact, is that my, when I nurture these hobbies, and I wouldn't just call them hobbies, they're equally as important to me. These interests, it feeds back into my, my role as an engineer and vice versa. So basically, that is what I would say, that, and Intuit even encourages that, to bring your whole self to work. Like being in front of a camera, speaking, writing, is something that I've always done, I've always wanted to do. And I'm getting that opportunity to do that here. So yeah, life has a very beautiful way of working out, and you don't need to fit yourself into a box. There is no box. That's my takeaway.
For me, it would be...
For the younger one, to say to the youngest.
I think ever since I've been a child, I've really been very, very curious. There's this funny instance when I was when my aunt was cooking something, and she went on to name the ingredients that she was adding in this recipe, and she goes like, okay, now we're adding this, and she mentions garam masala. I'm like, why is it called garam masala? And I kept on bothering her so much that she just stopped me and she put a question mark here on my forehead. It's true story. When she watches it, she'll be reminded of this story. She made a question mark here on my forehead with a marker and telling me, when will you ever stop asking questions? And I think over the years, I somehow stopped asking too many questions because I would think that it bothers people. Let's say you're in a room full of 10 people and the teacher, say 10 people, and then the teacher is done this lecture or something, and then the students want to really get out of the class and just be done with it. And I would always be stuck with some questions in my mind, and then over the years I sort of let that fear take over me, and I'd be like, oh no, I shouldn't be asking questions because everyone wants to leave, so I shouldn't bother them. But then if I could go back and give any advice to myself, I'd tell her, be yourself, be your true authentic self. Ask as many questions as you want, because if it bothers someone, then it bothers someone. As long as it makes you happy and makes you do your thing, just keep on doing it. And yeah, as Swastika mentioned, I think here at Intuit, people do really appreciate you asking questions. If you're in a meeting and it's not expected that you stay silent and absorb all of the information and stay there like a sponge. What is really appreciated here is that you have a lot of questions, which sort of also sort of tells people that you're probably learning it and you want to understand it better, and that's why you have questions.
Absolutely.
And that's also one thing I really like about the culture at Intuit. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Right. Yeah.
Like in every meeting, any sort of questions we ask, everyone patiently answers them. And we do the same in turn too.
That's true. That's very true. Like this is what I have seen across. Like I've been with Intuit for some time now, and I've seen in every meeting, every leader, even like your tech leads, your managers, everyone, like they encourage questions. They encourage that you should have a clarity and you should have your point, whatever you want to say and all. Like that should be well listened and that should be well acted upon.
Yes, and
Yeah,
then they
like,
hold
so-
themselves accountable too. Like in VP specifically, we have these ask me AMAs with leaders now for a while. We've had that where you can just go and you get like some FaceTime with the leader and you can just ask any question that you want, anything, be it related to the roadmap or what the plans for the next few years are, or why we are doing certain things, or work life. So everyone's there, like willing to answer those questions. So this was a lovely and enlightening episode. We got into some really good discussions, a very introspective journey also. So it's been fun. If you liked this episode, let us know what stereotypes we've been able to debunk for you, and share and subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.